Chapter 4, The Superintendent, the School Board, and the Unheard Voices and Stories. The focus on this chapter is how hard it can be for parents to get accurate information about what is actually happening in schools. As we move through this chapter, I want us to remember that the true nature and reality of schools are so often hidden within the day-to-day experiences of teachers and school staff. When these voices are silenced, or more often just have nowhere to speak, the truth becomes whatever picture admin want to paint for the parents. Before we move further, I want to acknowledge again the variance you'll find in school districts all over. It's not being trivial to say that 10 different districts will have 10 different superintendents and school boards. Each district has its own issues. Often, school boards can fall in love with their chosen superintendent. Other times, it's a costly divorce that can drag on. Regardless of their relationship, what interests us here is how hard it can be to get rid of the superintendent, school board, or both when the reality of the district is hidden behind worthless district speeches and website updates. As a brief review, we can think of the superintendent as something like a district boss or the president of a company. The school board hire the superintendent and are essentially the only people in the district who can remove the superintendent. The school board members are voted in locally during elections and serve terms until they leave or lose a re-election. Both have endless responsibilities, which you can Google if you want. But what we're interested in for this video is what limited accountability there is for superintendents and the board when insider information about the district is so scarce. School districts have a lot in common with many corporations. We've talked about test score factories maximizing profits/scores, but the similarities go to the top. Whether corporation or district, when the board only cares about the data and gains, the president or superintendent don't have to care about the workers. Workers, teachers, and students become walking data points. As a master in the art of the sale, the superintendent convinces the board that focusing on the data proves that they care about improving schools. Parents are convinced too, which isn't surprising when it's the only opinion they've heard. Two questions arise. Why would any parent vote against a school board member when district data represented is so positive? And how much could we expect any parent to possibly know about the inner workings and problems of the district? Let's consider these in a thought experiment. Think about the businesses around where you live. You may know the main ones, but there's plenty of businesses you've driven by hundreds of times and don't even know the company name. Now let's imagine the average local voter being asked to vote for board members for any of these companies. Chances are you wouldn't have a clue who to vote for, even if you knew the company and some of the employees. Even if you did some research and listened to some speeches by candidates, you'd have so little understanding of the company that you'd be better off asking an employee to tell you who to vote for. Now, to be clear, it's different when voting for school boards, as parents have their own school experiences to draw from and they have experience from their own kids in the district. It's also very important that parents feel that they have a voice in the direction of the district, but this only works when you have multiple sources of information available. With a lack of any platform to voice concerns or protests, the teachers' voices are non-existent, so parents can only vote based on what they've heard and seen. The end result is that the school board elections are treated as uncontroversial. Remember, how could it be important or controversial when all district data either shows everything going so well or shows all the areas that the teachers are failing our kids, which justifies the tactics of the current board and superintendent even more. The disconnect so often seen between school board candidates and the realities teachers face every day is a direct result of teachers not having anywhere or way to share their experiences. This continues to be an impossible dilemma for teachers, as we're not allowed to share any personal information about students or incidents, which is understandable and also the law, but it's those exact experiences that gruelingly detail the harm and failure of district policies. Without our stories, we've got nothing. With the teachers' stories and concerns sidelined, school board elections focus more on budgets and mission statements, which, to be clear, are very important, but any sense of urgency for change is gone. The position isn't given the importance it deserves due to it being uncontroversial. Thus, the school board elections are viewed as shiny, happy candidates making budget promises. It's so uncontroversial that parents often vote based on whose lawn signs they've seen the most of. In my opinion, the most important responsibility for school board members is the one that is almost completely ignored: hiring the superintendent and holding them accountable. Remember that only the board can hire and fire a super. Doesn't matter if the whole district wants the superintendent gone. They're not going anywhere as long as the school board is happy. And thus begins the nightmare so many districts face. When teachers and staff want the super gone, the school board won't budge an inch, and parents have no information about what's happening in schools. Even if parents start to learn about how bad it's gotten in the district, the only real solution is to elect school board members that will hold the superintendent accountable, which can take years, as board members are up for election on different years. But remember, most voters aren't aware of the school board's connection and power over the superintendent. And why would they be, as it's such an uncontroversial role that it's hardly talked about? Convincing voters to elect new school board members is extremely difficult when the teachers' stories are muzzled. How can some parents convince potential voters about a problem when those most involved in the problem, the teachers, are out of the picture? Even more difficult is organizing a campaign, which will take years to accomplish with no guarantees of election victories. This is an uphill battle, as superintendents and current board members control the image and perceived status of the district. What emerges from all this is a completely broken system. There's no reason that the school board should have the sole power in hiring and firing a superintendent. School staff need a direct role in voting to hire a superintendent, along with an even more important role to impeach a superintendent when the vast majority of staff members choose so. This doesn't need to look the same in every district, but staff members need a vote and an option to stop a superintendent and board members from holding a school hostage. It should be no surprise that the longer a superintendent and board members are in power, the more influence is extended, as superintendents continually hire loyal principals and staff who work directly under the super. Opposition voices are weeded out, and an admin cult of cronies and puppets forms a buffer zone around the superintendent. You now have a posse of enforcer admin that are completely untouchable. Admin are essentially the noble class, while the rest of the staff are just peasants. And thus we've come back full circle to the district environment that allows for teacher bashing, test score shaming, and everything discussed up to this point, which sadly I can probably refer to as the usual. A quick note that even though teachers are reliant and in debt to our unions for any labor gains we've ever made, our local union can usually only help with contract issues, meaning as long as admin don't do anything technically illegal, we teachers are on our own as far as pushing for any sort of change from within. Unfortunately, it's not unusual for admin to get loyalists elected into the union, which effectively defangs them. I want to end this chapter by noting that there is an entire generation of brand new teachers who have known nothing but this current system of education. This is important, as many young teachers don't even know there's a problem, as this is all they've ever known. Of course we do room clearings. I remember doing them all the time when I was in school. Why wouldn't we do them? This normalization goes beyond their K-12 experience and extends directly into teacher programs in colleges all over. We'll examine this in our next chapter.